Right guys, welcome back. Before I do a different video today, just responding to a lot of the comments I've had in the comment boxes of the previous videos, primarily talking about bike safety. Locking up your bike when you're going on a tour or even if you're out for a day, it applies either way. This is a cycle tour and focus channel, so the focus is mostly towards when you're away, but I think this advice really works for anyone with a bike that's planning to lock it up at any point, and just going over some of the main things involved with that. To start with, probably the most important, but also one of the more simple ones, is talking about actual bike locks, how we actually lock our bikes and what we use. There's a lot of different information about these. My advice really, if you're looking at a bike lock, and it's sort of like looking at doors or looking at any form of security items, is look at the videos online of where they test these items to destruction. If you are looking at a particular lock, don't just pick it up in the store. I really recommend against that, not to do that. Research it before you purchase it. For example, a lock I use at the minute, and I'm not saying this is an amazing lock, has a gold standard little rating there, and this can give you quite a big false sense of security. I feel quite safe using this where I live in a town, because the type of people that usually overcome these sort of locks, I'm not saying these are rubbish, but I'm just saying the type of people who overcome these locks are usually sort of organised gangs of bike thieves. So places in London, other cities, Paris, Barcelona, and smaller cities in the UK and so forth, they actually will go around looking for expensive bikes. This lock in particular, for example, I bought when I bought an e-bike about 6 years ago. When I bought this, I didn't really know much about how these can be overcome. I thought that looks solid, there's no way anyone's going to get through that. Talking about organised crime, like bike gang, they will normally target something, this in particular I've seen in a video, in a couple of ways. They'll either cut straight through this part of the lock with like an angle grinder or some form of power tool, takes probably a minute, if that, and then once they cut through it, they can twist the other part off, and off they go with your bike.
Is it your bike?
What?
Is that your bike? Camera.
The other one is on, because these have quite large edges, they can actually jackhammer or have some form of power tool that hits up and completely knocks the lock out of place, and off they go again. When you're looking at buying a lock, if you have, this is really dependent on what bike you have. If you have something, if you're going away on a cheap bike, you know, if I was going, like my road bike I use, it's £120. I use a £5 cable lock because I don't really care. To be honest, the only time I'm locking that bike up is to go in the shop. It's more of just an inconvenience for someone for that 5 minutes to not just jump on the bike and ride off. So I'm not saying to go and spend loads of money on a lock if that's your use case and it's a cheap bike, whatever. The more expensive you get, the more you want it to be an inconvenience, because preventing theft is basically making it inconvenient for the person. No matter what you get, there is always a way through that security system, but the harder you make it, the longer it's going to take them to take it, the less likely they're going to even attempt it. And there's a lock I've been looking at, which is about £150. It's quite expensive. Really impressed by how it was so difficult to get through. It took the guy something like 5 angle grinding blades to get through, burnt through, just to get through one section, and he couldn't even twist the lock off, so he had to cut the other part of it. And this, in a sense, you think the thief would probably have given up. They're not unlikely to be carrying around 10 different blades in this instance. They still could get through it if they wanted to, but it's very difficult, and hence why I'm looking at that, because I've got a relatively-ish expensive bike, and it just is a bit of peace of mind.
He still can't get the thing off.
I've never seen anything like this. It's nuts. I'm running out of tools. Well, hopefully
how are you gonna get it off?
It should spin and I can...
Hopefully it should spin?
What do you want me to say, Dad?
Going back to my original point, I'm not saying these sort of locks are terrible. Buy something that you think is best for your use case. If you're storing your bike in hotels most of the time, and the only time you're locking your bike up is to go into a supermarket for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, something like this is fine. If you're traveling in pairs, one, if you can just look after your bike. So something like this or even cheaper is fine. You don't go and spend loads of money if you don't need to. But I travel on my own quite a bit, and there might be chances next year when I'm doing a round the world trip where I'm going to have to leave my bike for an extended period of time, depending on what's happening. And that's just a bit of peace of mind, especially when I'm locking it up overnight somewhere random. You know, that's me. It just makes me feel comfortable. I'm not saying you have to go and do that. Some big mistakes people do make. Usually your lock will come with a cable like this. This is the cable this lock came with. So what you're meant to do when you lock your bike up is, if you're going away for long enough, is to put your frame through this. It should be in the center here, and the U-lock should go around something solid, which they can't lift your bike up over, or you know, lower down below, or lift the item that you've locked it to up. Sometimes things aren't bolted to the floor. What mistake a lot of people do is they will often loop this around here and then actually feed this through the bike frame, or feed this through the bike frame and then feed this through whatever they're locking it to. And there's a big problem using this as the main form of security. This shouldn't be the thing stopping someone from stealing your bike, because you can quite easily cut through this with some gardening tools. So really all this is for is if you want to secure like a front wheel or a rear wheel. We have quick release wheels. The front wheel is particularly easy to take because you just undo it, whiz off if you've got a front wheel, whereas the rear wheel is a bit more difficult. You've got to get all the chain off and everything, and usually there's more of a load on it if it's a touring bike. So really this is just a secure wheel. Someone's not going to bother probably cutting this just to steal a wheel, but they would happily go through and cut it just to take the bike. So just keep that in mind. If you're cycle touring, you also often have items on your bike that you need to keep safe. One of the main things is if you're traveling on your own, it can be a bit of a difficulty of that balance of what is right to leave safe in a pannier bag. You can't lock a pannier bag up in the same way as you can lock your bike up. So the strategy I often use is, because I'm carrying some quite expensive stuff, I've got my GoPro, I've got a drone, I've got my laptop. These are the most expensive items on my bike, and I don't want someone just picking them up and taking them away, especially if I'm going into a supermarket, especially if I'm going, you know, camping up for the night. Pannier bags are really easy to get into. You unclip a couple of clips, you can pick whatever out of there. And this was something someone asked in a previous comment in the video. My advice really is to, what I do, if you have enough space, is to basically have a little carry bag and have these items in there that you can just take out and walk off with into the supermarket. Avoid leaving them on your bike. It's a backpack, it's even easier. You can just chuck it on your back, walk into the supermarket and go in. If you're only carrying around your passport and your phone, you're not really filming, then a handlebar bag can be really great because it just clips off. You take it away, it's like a little handbag, and you just walk in with it, and you've got all your important stuff with you. Someone's not going to go and steal that and cause you massive grief. We all need our phones these days, and we definitely need our passports when we've gone abroad. So it's just having something there which you can easily pick up, take away with you, leaves that security. And then if they rummage through and take a pair of my socks, then good on them. You know, hopefully they wash them and return them. That's sort of my advice there, is just don't leave it on the bike. You're not going to be able to make your pannier bags extra secure. So have a system where if you're leaving your bike for long enough, just take it with you. And then it's on you, you know you're looking after it. And even if someone does manage to compromise your whole security thing and take your bike, at least they haven't got all your other stuff as well. Now, with all of that in mind, all the things for bike security, locks and everything, the best bit of kit you have is your brain and just how you generally feel, that gut feeling you get when you go somewhere. There's a few times now when I've been very annoyed when I've gone away, where I've decided to carry on. I was the closest supermarket for the next 10 miles. I decided not to stay there because it just gave me a bad feeling. One last year, I remember a guy just cycling around in circles in a car park. He picked up a box, looked at it and dropped it, and just kept cycling in the circles. So I'm not leaving anything here, I'm going. Another one I turned up to looked really awful. Unfortunately, there was loads of homeless people outside. The whole area was quite run down, and I just thought, no way. I mean, if I'm not even comfortable walking through here after time, then you don't want to leave your bike there. Just follow this gut feeling. If you, obviously sometimes you might just be worrying, and that's normal. If you've got a bad feeling about an area, just move on if you're really that uncomfortable with it. Follow that intuition. If you feel like something's not right, go on and go somewhere else, find somewhere else. 10 miles, 5 miles on a bike to go to the next place to eat isn't really that bad in the grand scheme of things. Hopefully I've not made you worry more. The intention's hopefully to calm any nerves you might have, Don't let this fear be a reason to not go away. It really isn't as bad as you think it is. The news always makes the world out to be as worse than it actually is. Even the locals sometimes can make it sound dreadful. I remember in Spain, I was talking when I was going to Barcelona, so many people were saying, oh, theft, terrible, terrible. But you can overcome these issues if you find the right accommodation and the right places to put your stuff. The biggest annoyance is always if you need the bathroom and you don't like where you are and you're like, brilliant, especially when it's a built up city. It can be like an uncomfortable mile or so till you feel you find adequate toilets somewhere. But really, don't worry about it at all. It is well more than worth it. You'll realise after a few days in, your nerves will calm and you'll feel a lot better. Just go and do the trip if you're thinking of doing it, or whatever you're doing. And there's always something we can worry about. Cycling is an amazing way to go and see the world, but just take those simple precautions and it should hopefully double, triple, quadruple your chances of not having something taken when you're away. So, but thank you for watching the video. If there's any extra things you want to say that you think I've missed, that you think is important and share, please do. Comments, as always, are amazing. It helps me and everyone else in the videos. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you're having a nice day. So I'll talk to you soon. Take care now, guys. Bye now.